Hello everyone, Storm 101 here. Today we'll be tracking the possibility for another severe weather setup across portions of Dixie Alley here. Unfortunately, it could be a similar setup to the last one, so we'll be talking about that. There will also be some marginal severe weather chances for portions of the Southern Plains and maybe possibly for portions of the Midwest. So let's talk about the SPC outlook. So for this is for the rest of today. Not much going on. Maybe some thunder across portions of Kansas, the Oklahoma Panhandle, northeastern New Mexico, southeastern Colorado, in south central Nebraska. And that's really it for the rest of today. So day two, which is tomorrow, we got a large marginal risk for severe weather from central Texas all the way up into most of Oklahoma, getting into the Oklahoma-Kansas border as well. And when we look into the probabilities, there's a little tornado probability, which includes places like Wichita Falls, Lawton, Sherman, Ardmore, and Denson. So those places do have a probability for a tornado. Everybody else is mainly for hail and damage winds, so not too big of a deal of a setup there. And if we move on to day three, which I don't think this is going to load, but for day three, I believe it shows, yeah, just general thunder for Midwest all the way down to the Gulf Coast of Louisiana and Mississippi. And we're going to watch this zone here. We'll probably see a March risk possibly get issued there. There's a cold core setup where we have decent amount of instability with some wind shear. And this is kind of within the low pressure system. And stuff what we call a cold core setup. You got very cold temperatures at 850 millibars, so you can get some hail, and there'll be just enough instability for some thunderstorms to develop. And you don't really need to have warm temperatures at the surface to get some instability if you're going to have very cold temperatures at 850 millibars. And all hazards are possible across these areas in here. And don't be too surprised that we get a marginal risk across those places there. I mean, it's just a marginal severe threat. Now, really in the 4 to 8 day outlook, every day has predictably too low, but if I'm correct, that day 5 is the day we have to watch it for severe weather. Now, I understand why the SPC did not issue a 50% across Dixie Alley here. It's because of the shift in the models here. And what that shift is actually the low track here. I believe what was originally before was a little bit of a server track here. Has a track of 7 like this here. It brings in severe weather potential for some of these places right in here, and even for portions of the mid-Atlantic. Well, what that changes now is the low, pretty much similar at the beginning, but it also goes a little bit further north than the track back in last week, what models are indicating. So now your severe weather potential is possibly into some of these places right in here, possibly. And this will be the region here to watch for the possibility for some severe weather. And, that's just a rough draft. I mean, some areas in here may have a chance for severe weather, but areas of the blue here will probably be areas to watch here. So for areas in the mid-Atlantic southeast, your guys' severe weather starts been going down because of the placement of this low here. Since it's moving further away, you don't really have a whole lot of wind shear, you don't have a whole lot of divergence to work with. So really, you do not have much of severe weather potential for the southeast, which did get. I mean, North Carolina got hit decently hard back on, I believe it was Thursday. Yeah, Thursday. Some of these places here did get hit a little bit hard by a couple tornadoes, if I'm correct, in some of those places there. So let's go through some modeling here. Just mainly talking about Wednesday here. So when we get into Tuesday into early Wednesday morning, you got 996 millibar low in northwestern Missouri. Now, for places across Dixie Alley in the Tennessee Valley, your chance of severe weather will be very low because the placement is low won't be nearby, so your severe weather chances won't be there. However, when you get into portions of I was about to say Louisiana, Illinois, portions of Missouri, maybe into portions of Iowa and Indiana. These will be the zones here to watch for the possibility for some severe weather. Again, with that cold core setup, where you have very cold 850 millibar temperatures, you got some instability and some dew points in there as well. So at least a marginal severe setup is possible, but strong storms cannot be ruled out some of those places. Now with that front there, it kind of stays stationary here. So for some of these zones up here, you still got decent dew points, possibly some decent cake numbers. And that's going to make things a little bit easier for this next system right here to bring in some of these good 60s dew points a little bit further north here. Now getting into places across portions of Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois. And that stationary front will change it to a warm front here. And that's going to bring in some better dew points and cape numbers in here. And the European model is likely too aggressive with this low pressure system. It's going to rapidly uh, intensify here. So this is a 993 millibar low southeastern Missouri. And that's a pretty decent setup for severe weather across portions of Dixie Valley to the Tennessee Valley. And when we get to the next frame here, about 6 hours later, now it's down to 980 millibars. And you can see here possibility for some supercells, really for portions of Alabama, maybe to northwestern Georgia, central Tennessee, up into central Kentucky here. Possibility for some supercells here. So what this setup looks like here, by looks of it, you got a warm front here, you got a cold front right here, then you got your occluded front here, basically like right there. And anybody south of this warm front here is in the warm sector and may have the chance for some severe weather. And the zones in here will probably be the zones to watch or the possibility for some severe weather. Now, it even goes down to the Gulf Coast as well, since it's kind of off the screen there of the view we're looking at here. And let's take a look into a couple things here. We'll take a look to 500 millibar high winds here. And at least we're getting a little better agreement with the placement, but there's still a little bit of a range of how strong low pressure is. Now, I think the European model is too aggressive. The Canadian model is weaker with the low, but it has a very similar low track here. But it still brings in a pretty decent severe weather setup here. So if we take a look at the European model at 500 millibar winds, here, let's go to a different site here, actually, where this here can load a little bit easier. So let's take a look at too windy here, and let's go to 4 o'clock on Thursday. And as we kind of look into this here, let me get a different color here. So you got divergence going on here, and when you got divergence, that's where some thunderstorms could possibly develop here. So at this point here, your winds are coming from the southwest here, and at one point, the winds will actually probably come straight to the south here. And when you have 500 millibar winds kind of come from the southwest here, you got to change the wind direction of height there, which can enhance your tornado potential. So let's go to 8 o'clock here. That's a very strong winds at 850 millbars. So keep in mind, this is not surface winds. This is 850 millbar winds, and you got 116 mile an hour winds. That's pretty strong there for 850 millbars. And kind of out in the warm sector here, you got some pretty strong, or we could call this your low level jet. Actually, this is in the wrong spot. That is actually at 500 millbars. We'll look at to 850 millbars. This is actually 500 millbars. So 117 mile an hour winds, 500 millbars. Yeah, that's decently strong. And as we kind of get to midnight here, when you kind of get along that front there, look at those winds. I mean, 127 miles an hour if you go to 4 a.m. Yeah, you got some pretty strong winds. You still got a decent amount of divergence going on here. So some thunderstorms could possibly develop somewhere in that zone in there, which if we turn on rain and thunder here, look at there. You got a possibility for some supercells. When you get stripes like these, usually that indicates for the possibility for some supercells. That's something I learned from one of the meteorologists here a while ago here. Is when your PMO shows stripes like this, it does indicate for some supercells. which it does indicate supercells as far north as kind of around the Cincinnati area. But also keep in mind, look at the timing here, 4 o'clock in the morning. So this could be an overnight threat for some areas in here. It'll say like how much instability could be there. Now, of course, in the middle of the night, there is not that much instability at all. Some of your better instability around this time will be along the Gulf Coast. So let's kind of go back to 4 o'clock here. So kind of around peak time heating. You can see here, we got decent CAPE numbers, and this is surfacely space. I believe this is surfacely based. Correct me if I'm wrong, but 1500 CAPE. I mean, that's good enough for severe weather. I mean, you really need over 1,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE, and you got severe weather threat. In some areas are double that, which is a decent amount of CAPE you got going on there. And of course, we can get to the overnight hours. This is 8 o'clock here, so this is when the sun sets for some areas. And you still got CAPE numbers at least exceeding 1,000. And then when we reach to 11 o'clock, look at those CAPE numbers getting as far north as Indiana, Kentucky, and portions of Illinois. So your severe weather potential may get that far north. But if we look into the GFS, which does have a progression bias to it, so let's back this up to 4 o'clock. And you can see here, shows a pretty similar scenario. Now, I would imagine if the GFS model was slower, it probably show a stronger low. It also probably has better instability numbers here. I'll kind of get some time there for some of these instability numbers to get a little bit further north here, and also for those dew points as well. So your severe weather potential may get as far north as portions of Kentucky, Illinois, and maybe into Indiana, maybe into southeastern Missouri. And again, it's something to watch here. But if you go back down to Dixie Alley, you still got pretty good CAPE numbers in there, which is pretty favorable for some severe weather. Let's go back to the surface here. You can see here, you got pretty good temperatures. I mean, 60s, that's pretty good. If we look to dew points here, I mean, that's upper 50s, low 60s. 60s is what you want for severe weather. It's actually got some places into the upper 60s, and that's really good. You got an atmosphere that has a whole lot of moisture to work with here. I mean, that's going to create some very humid conditions there. And the European model is a pretty similar thing, but also has a much larger shield here for dew points. In the yellow colors here, that's 60 plus dew points. Look how far north that gets there. I mean, that's pretty far north. I mean, upper 50 dew points. Still favorable for some thunderstorms. But then again, you want some 60s dew points here, which seems like this zone in here has 60 plus dew points, roughly here. This will probably be the zone here to watch for severe weather. Some of the similar regions back on Wednesday here, which I know some places got hit pretty hard. Specifically, this region here got hit pretty hard with this tornado outbreak that happened back on Wednesday. However, some areas did bust, some areas did verify. Hey, it could have been worse here, so don't be complaining about it. And unfortunately, some people did get hit pretty hard, so it's not a complete bust or it's not a complete verification or anything. It's kind of 50-50 with that event there, in my opinion. There's been arguments about that, talking about if it's a bust or it's verified. But I think as a whole, it's a kind of 50-50 scenario. 1 o'clock in the morning here, you still got pretty good dew points. I mean, 60s dew points. I mean, you're good to go with that there. And I think my other concern here is going to be the wind. I mean, check out these wind gusts here. And I think the sweet spot's at 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, 79-mile-an-hour wind gusts. Now, the European model typically is overdone with wind gusts. It does it nearly every time, so take that as a grain of salt. I don't think 79-mile-an-hour wind gusts is going to happen in Illinois and Indiana. Now, when you kind of get into the warm sector, yeah, there may be a chance some places may get 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts in there, but I bet the chances of that's a little bit lower end. You can see here, yeah, getting close to 65-mile-an-hour wind gusts in some of those areas in there. And with the GFS model, it does a better job of wind gusts, but of course it's got a bias to the model being too progressive. And I believe the sweet spot's when we kind of get around midnight here. You got some places 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts. I mean, that's not as near as much as the European model, but something to watch here. I think the Icon model can get that far out too. Yeah, and this is the Icon model here. It doesn't show nearly as bad as the European model. It also does have the low track a little bit further to the south here. We'll keep an eye on. For areas up north, it really depends on what the low track here. But it doesn't really matter. Either way, with the low track at Dixie Alley, you do have a severe weather threat. Even though if it may be down here or if it's up here, you do have some severe weather potential. I mean, early on, it's going to be down here. So it's kind of going to be an all-day event. Now, I don't typically use this thing here. So this is the CIPS Experimental Analog-Based Severe Weather Probability Guidance. So it basically shows, this is from the GFS ensembles here, and it tries to find some of the most similar analogs to what the model is predicting. So that's what this thing here is. And we're going to go to day 5. So this is when the event is going to be occurring. Which my internet's terrible. Here we go. And it did kind of bad on the last one. That's why I don't really use it this often. A lot of people do, but I don't really recommend using. But what it shows for all severe potential, it does show a 60% chance for severe weather. And I believe this is, yeah, it's within a 110-kilometer of a grid point. So yeah, on that, we'll take a look to some of its other probabilities. So this is the tornado probability. It does show, looks to be a little 45% probability in south central Mississippi with a larger 30% probability. Hail, 60%. It's a little bit further west, and that may have to deal with a squall line there. We'll see what the wind shows. Shows a 45% wind probability. So that's what it shows. And if we actually take a look to the GFS ensembles, and we kind of get to that point there, that shows some pretty good thunderstorm action up as far north as southwestern Kentucky, southeastern Missouri, western Tennessee. But the main area to watch here will be this zone here, which doesn't show a whole lot of thunderstorm activity in here. I mean, as you kind of get to 6Z Thursday, so this is like late Wednesday night here, it does show some thunderstorm activity there. And let's take a look to the mean STSCP. This is the mean supercell composite parameter, I should say. And if we see what it shows here, it does show a pretty decent probability here of a 6. And that's a pretty decent probability. I mean, when you get to as high as a 2 to 3, you do have a pretty decent chance for supercells. But when you get to a 5 to 6, that's a pretty good chance for seeing a supercell within the zone here. Now, let's see here. We're pretty much done with the GFS ensembles. Let's look into the GFS. So this is 18Z, and like I said, it does have a progression issue here. So this is Thursday 18Z, so this is peak time heating. Shows a much weaker low. I mean, 1,002 millibars. So you're talking about a range from 1,002 millibars to 980, which I think again the GFS may be a little bit too weak. I think I'll follow along the Kenny model at least for the strength of the low. I'll show you guys that in a moment. But it does show some good thunderstorm activity, especially across northeastern Alabama, northwestern Georgia, and southeastern Tennessee. And it does show some thunderstorms ongoing across southern Ohio and Kentucky in there as well. Again, it's something to watch here, and it's kind of interesting. It shows a much weaker low than some of the other ones show. We'll see what the next run will show in there. And we'll also take a look to those dew points. Wait, I've already shown the dew points. And let's look into the key model. And like I said here, it's kind of in between the models. I mean, 987 millibar low, that's a pretty strong low still. It does show some thunderstorm activity going on across, looks to be Kentucky, portions of Tennessee, and also southern Indiana and Ohio. We may have to watch for that cluster of thunderstorms. That may bring in a squall line of storms along a cold front where we had some pretty strong 850 millibar winds, which is your load of a jet, or you could say your wind energy, which those numbers look to be very high here. Which almost forgot to show you guys this. Going back to the European model with the wind direction of high tier. So we'll go to 850 millibars. You can see here, like I was talking about here. Now, when you kind of see these holes like this here, that indicates possibly a thunderstorm in that zone there. And you can see some of these winds here, and 80, 90 mile an hour winds. Yeah, that's pretty easily strong here. If you go to 2 a.m., I mean, you're getting closer to 90 miles an hour. Some places, yeah, there you go. But if we put in, let's see here, 700 millibars. You see here now it starts to become a little bit more from the southwest, and we'll skip to 500 millibars. Then it's straight from the southwest here, so that's what your indication of showing wind direction of height. So pretty much at the surface to 850 millibars. That's from straight from the south, and 850 millibars. You got winds coming from the southwest, and that's wind direction with height there, which can enhance your tornado potential. So that's something we got to watch here very closely here. It doesn't have to include Kentucky here. I mean, it includes really for like places like Tennessee, portions of Arkansas, Alabama, and Mississippi, portions of Louisiana, and even to portions of Georgia here have where some of these areas here show pretty good amount of wind direction of height here. 925 millibars. Yeah, it's straight from the south here. So yeah, this is definitely something we're gonna watch here pretty closely here. And the European model does show a negative tilt trough at the same time here. And one way to look at a negative tilt trough is when something like this here. And that's a negative tilt trough here, which can enhance your severe weather potential. So we'll be watching this pretty closely here. So basically, Thursday into early Friday morning will probably be your severe weather threat time frame. So for again, areas I'm going to circle here in the red will probably be the zones to watch for the potential for some severe weather here. Probably in the next couple days here. And we'll see if the SPC tomorrow will issue a 15%, maybe even 30%. Who knows? We'll just have to see what will happen in some of these regions here. We'll see what the malls show over the next couple of days. But anyways, guys, this is all for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like this video, hit that like button. If you really like my channel, hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell notification so you never miss an upload. If you guys have questions about this, you can put a comment section down below. I'll answer you guys questions. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.